morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Motivating Monday. For today's episode, we're going to continue on the topic on the fruit of the Spirit. And the topic will be on temperance, or what some may call self-control, depending on the translation that you have. The supporting verses is actually taken from Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 to 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. Okay, so what exactly is temperance? So by searching through the concordance, there are several different definitions, but they all kind of mean the same thing. So reading through this, you get a general idea of what exactly is temperance. So some define temperance as being of sound mind, meaning your mind is not clouded. Example with emotions like anger or other forms of emotions. Another definition of temperance is to curb one's passion, especially when you are faced with temptation. Temperance could also mean being a master of self or power over self. Temperance could also mean keeping in hand, which is in line with curbing one's passion. And the last definition of temperance is being disciplined. Okay, so some supporting verses that supports temperance. Earlier on I read about Galatians chapter 5 verse 22 to 23. Is also mentioned in 2 Peter chapter 1 verses 5 to 7. And beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, and to temperance patience, and to patience godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness charity. It's interestingly how in 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 5 to 7 it talks about a progressive building of the Christian virtues, from faith to virtue to knowledge, and from knowledge and from building knowledge you need to build your temperance. Okay, we're going to talk more about that later on. Other supporting verses on temperance in Titus chapter 2 verse 2. Interestingly, is commanded for the aged man to be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity, in patience. So it's something that the aged man is required to work on. Most definitely the others as well, not just the aged man. In Titus chapter 1 verse 7 to 9 also lists the qualification of an elder or a bishop. For a bishop must be blameless, as a steward of God, not self-willed, not soon angry, not given to wine, no striker, not given to filthy lucre, but a lover of hospitality, a lover of good men, sober, just, holy, temperate, holding fast the faithful word as he had been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince the gainsayers. So you see, temperance is a quality that is especially required by God to be portrayed by the aged man and also the elders as well. Not saying that they particularly will have this issue. Of course, this also applies to all Christians. We also need to have work on our temperance. So in order for us to understand, better understand how should we portray temperance, or how we can also look at biblical examples of people who did portray or did not portray temperance. That could help us better understand what exactly does it mean for us to portray temperance. So there are examples of people in the Bible who did not actually portray temperance. So first we look at Moses. So this account can be found in the book of Numbers chapter 20 verses 9 to 13. I'm not going to read the text. Basically what it actually is that Moses was commanded by God to speak to the rock to get water out for the children of Israel. And we also know earlier on that in the book of Deuteronomy, where God gave a similar command, but it's not the same, where he told him to strike the rock. and Moses complied to that. He struck the rock and the water came out. But this second occurrence, this was very close to leaving the wilderness. The people complained again, and God told, instead of telling him to strike the rock, he gave him a different commandment to speak to the rock. But for some reason, Moses did not obey God's commandment. Instead of speaking to the rock, he struck the rock. Not once, but twice. The reason was not explicitly recorded on why he did not obey God, but earlier on he was actually scolding the children of Israel, calling them rebels or some other name, and as a result, perhaps we can say that he was angry and lost control. But this was not really recorded in the Bible. But regardless of the reason, he lost control, and the Bible recorded that he disobeyed God. And of course, we know he was punished for it by not being able to enter into the promised land. So this is an example of Old Testament character who was not portraying temperance. He was not able to. He knows, he has knowledge, he knows the commandment, yet he chose not to obey. Okay. So sometimes we ourselves are also faced with the same situation. Maybe we emotionally there's some lapse in our mind, and we end up maybe we were angry about something, and then we end up sinning. Maybe we say the wrong thing. That is not the case. That is not the way we should act as Christians. The second example that I want to talk about is King David. This account can be found in 2 Samuel chapter 11 verse 2, where he sent his men out for battle, and he was in the king's house, and from the roof he saw a woman washing himself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And of course we know the case where we know that this was actually Bathsheba, and he lusted after her and chose to have intercourse with her, and they ended up having a son, and he did all the other sinful things to try to hide it. But let's go back to that incident where he saw the woman washing himself. David allowed his lust to dwell in him and continued to work on it, and into various kind of sins like lying, murder, and everything. So in Matthew chapter 5 verse 28, Jesus gave us a better commandment. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her have committed adultery with her already in his heart. This is the highest level of commandment that God, that Jesus has given us. We as Christians, especially Christian men, for example, we need to control our eyes. We need to not let this lust to form in the first place. Okay, so for those who are familiar, in the men's class we teach about this concept of bouncing your eyes. If you were to look at something that can generate lust, you would immediately train your eyes to look at something else. It is not easy. Definitely all Christian men need to work on it. Not saying that the women do not have this problem, but the men in particular, we need to have I will use the word temperance, or self-control, for us to avoid lusting in the first place. A similar verse as a form of support for this is also in Job chapter 31 verse 1. I made a covenant with mine eyes. Why then should I think upon a maid? So this is from the Old Testament. The concept is also the same. You will make a promise or a contract with your own eyes, to tell yourself that I will not look upon a woman to lust. Similar concept to what Jesus has mentioned in Matthew chapter 5 verse 28. So this is an example of King David is also an example of someone who did not portray temperance when the situation calls for it. Okay, and lastly we're going to look at another biblical person from the Bible who did not portray temperance. We look at the Peter in the New Testament, where he denied Jesus 3 times through lying. Okay, and immediately he was very sad when he realized that we do not exactly know the reason why Peter chose to lie or deny Jesus. Perhaps he was trying to get himself out of trouble, and we let the situation and the consequence dictate our actions, choosing to lie or hide the truth just so that we don't get into trouble. So this is a bad example of self-control, and it is not a portrayal of temperance. If you're not able to control the mind, we then will not be able to control the self. But now let's look at some examples of people in the Bible who actually do portray temperance. First, let's look at Lot. Interestingly, we think of Lot as someone who chose to. It's not a very. It's very. We don't usually talk about Lot, but interestingly, he was mentioned in the New Testament in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 7 to 8. And delivered just Lot vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. For that righteous man dwelling among them, in seeing and hearing, vexed his righteous soul from day to day with the unlawful deeds. So this is a man who lived in Sodom, and we know what the situation in Sodom is. They live a very sinful life, and when it was time to look for faithful people in the city, Lot was actually one of them. Of course, Abraham was trying to negotiate with God on how many faithful people we can find in order for God not to destroy the city. But the number was still not enough. Only Lot and his family were the only one. And imagine living for a period of time among unrighteous people, yet choosing and being vexed daily. The word vexed is like he's being tormented by it, and choosing not to sin, remaining righteous. That is self-control. That is temperance. That is something that we need to work on as Christians. And we live in this sinful world. There are many temptations. Our goal on this earth is to remain righteous in the sight of God by being disciplined, by controlling ourselves when faced with temptation. And the last character that actually portrayed temperance that I want to talk about is, of course, Jesus. And this account is the temptation in the wilderness in Matthew chapter 4, verse 1 to 11. Similarly, he was tempted on different aspects, yet he chose not to sin. That is self-control. That is temperance. That is a discipline of self, and not allowing temptation to take over us, to be able to curb one's passion. Alright? And so with that, we come to the conclusion. Temperance comes after knowledge. We read that in Galatians, in 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 5 to 7. In 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 5 to 7, we see that temperance actually comes after knowledge. So what exactly do we mean by knowledge? Knowledge is knowing what is the right thing to do. So knowing what is the right thing to do is actually a prerequisite. But it's different from actually doing it when a situation calls for it. Yes, we know from the word of God we're supposed to do this, we're supposed to do that. Like Moses knowing that he is supposed to speak to the rock. That is a prerequisite. But knowing that he needs to do it and actually doing it, that's where temperance is. Okay? Because we need to do it when a situation calls for it. It requires self-discipline. It requires curbing one's passion. It requires being of sound mind, having power over yourself. You need temperance. And earlier on I mentioned all the entire list of the definition earlier on. This is cultivated by repeatedly training yourself to always make the right decision and understand your thought process. If you understand yourself on how you make decisions, you can train yourself to always make the right decision. That is we call this like a conscience. So it's something that you I'm not saying conscience is the right, it's a way to guide your decision. Sometimes people do not train themselves, and they mistakenly use their conscience to justify wrongdoings. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying your conscience can be trained to tell yourself to do the right thing. Okay? But of course, sometimes we may fail. But if you feel that's alright, if you feel to make the right decision, that's alright. You just need to continue to walk in the light. Understand why you failed and work on preventing and overcoming it is important for us to continue walking in the light. That needs effort and determination. Okay, we need to strive to build up temperance in our lives. So with that, I come to the end of my lesson, and I hope that you have a good takeaway on what exactly temperance actually is. It is commanded by us to work to portray temperance, not just the aged man or the bishop. This is a requirement for all Christians. Okay, we need to train ourselves to portray temperance or self-control or discipline. Okay, with that, I thank you for your attention, and I hope to see you guys back here next week for the next session of the Motivating Monday. So have a good week ahead, and thank you everyone.